Hi, I'm Jim Fausone with Legal Help for Veterans, one of the veteran disability lawyers here, and we're bringing you 4 minutes with Legal Help for Veterans, which we do each week just to touch on a few things. Maybe you learned something that you didn't know before, and maybe you can follow up on something that'll be informative. One question we get on the disability side is from folks who call up and say, well, I want to be total and permanent rated by the VA. First off, let's talk about what that means and whether or not it can be done. So total and permanent, total means you're rated at 100%. And we've talked before, some disabilities don't get to 100%. Tinnitus doesn't get to 100%, or your thumb injury. But if you are able to stack disabilities and get to 100% rating, that would be a total rating. We always remind clients that, look, you don't really want to be 100% rated. You don't want to have that kind of problem, that level of problem, but for those who do, that's what we're after. So the next question becomes, will that disability improve over time? And you may have a problem that indeed will improve over time. And some other time we'll talk about the VA's ability to call you in for an exam and re-rate you based on that exam and that your condition's gotten better. But that's what you get away from if you have a total and permanent disability. The permanent part of that is you have that disability, that's the number. We're not calling you in for any more reviews because it's not going to get better. So that's what total, when if you're talking to somebody and you hear the word total and permanent disability from VA as a rating, that's kind of what it means. Percentage-wise, it's not a high percentage of folks who get that. In the news, I just sort of mentioned that we've got a new VA secretary. This is one of only 2 VA secretaries who's ever been appointed to that position that is not a veteran. He's supposed to be a great administrator. He's really supposed to know, Denis McDonough is really supposed to know how to make Washington work. Let's hope he makes it work for the veteran community. But so something to keep your eye on, be kind of interesting because, as I say, he's not a veteran. He's working real hard, though, to understand the issues. As we come to the end, or just are out of Black History Month, we shouldn't confine it just to a single month. There's so many interesting African Americans who've served in the military. I want to tell you about one of them. We're the podcast host for veteransradio.net, and we every week put up a podcast. Well, in the last year, we've had the opportunity to talk to Colonel Clifford Worthy, retired. Cliff Worthy was in the military from the 1940s into the 1970s. He was one of the first African Americans to go to West Point. So his story is really interesting because he gives a perspective of what happened at West Point, what happened as he moved around the country to different bases, when he was over in Germany, down in Vietnam. So very interesting story. It gives you a perspective of an African American veteran that I think you might enjoy. The guy's a real gentleman. He's now in his 90s, one hell of a guy, and I think you'd enjoy his podcast. We'll give you the link below. And then we also want to bring to your attention, as a result of our managing the homeofheroes.com site, we have a lot of stories about those who received the Medal of Honor, and some stories of those who did not. And there's an interesting story that we'll have a link to. It's called No Man Should Die Alone, on an African-American pilot, Jesse Brown, during Korea. Hard to be an African-American pilot in Korea at that time, but his plane crashed in Korea. His wingman, who was not African-American, white pilot, what he did to go down and stay with Jesse while Jesse was crashed and stuck in the cockpit, the rescue attempt, harrowing. Ultimately, the wingman got the Medal of Honor. Jesse Brown did not. He got the Distinguished Flying Cross. But it's a very good story, very interesting, and it makes you think a little bit about how the military maybe treated its African-American service members versus those Caucasian service members, and something we can all learn from. So I hope you'll go visit that, the links below from homeofheroes.com. I want to thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to talking to you next week, and thank you for your service.